Thank you to everybody for joining us for our Voice AR webinar today. For 25 years, Windsor has been helping businesses of all sizes use comms and tech to deliver a great customer experience. And we are super excited that AI has exploded onto the scene and given us a whole bunch of new tools to be able to do that for customers. Many of you already work with us today and may know really when it comes to AI, there's three core practice areas where we work with customers. One is around AI adoption. So how do we help a business get ready for AI? How do we make sure their data, their security, their policies, training, enablement is all in the right place so those foundations are super secure? The second is what we call AI Assist. This is tools to help people in the business be more productive. So Copilot is undoubtedly the most common and widely used in a business setting, but also a whole bunch of other tools embedded into applications, whether that's training, content, coaching, live call coaching, lots of assistance tools to help colleagues perform their roles brilliantly. And the third is AI agents. AI agents are super exciting because they can actually take the work that is being done by people in the business today and actually complete those tasks on their behalf. It's AI agents we're talking about today, and it's specifically voice AI agents. I was fortunate to sit down with Alex, who is the founder of Simply AI, one of our technology partners that we're working with really closely in that area. So delighted to share the conversation that Alex and I had. Afterwards, we'll be going to a live Q&A where I'll be joined by Rob, also from the Simply AI team, who's our Chief AI and Innovation Officer. And we'll be answering your Q&A. So please do type those in to the question bar as we go along. Enjoy the conversation and hope that you also learn something. One of those really exciting domains, and coming from 25 years as a sort of communication business, is AI voice agents. And that's where Alex and I met. And the partnership that we've developed with Simply AI has been phenomenal in giving us a whole new set of tools to be able to do that.
And from my side, the partnership is fantastic for us with Windsor Telecom as Simply AI. I myself probably share a similar age to Pete and 25 years within the industry. I ultimately sold my business in 2024, but the wife told me I was too young to retire and had to go again.
Had to get you out of the house somehow.
Yeah, had to get me out of the house somehow. I sort of coined the theory that voice AI would be a next-gen telecoms product because the telecoms industry and the industry I've been in owns the voice relationship between the business and its customers. And on that thesis, we then set out about delivering a voice AI solution, initially with £1 million Innovate grant and subsequently, I guess, with our own funds, to deliver a voice AI solution that the telecoms industry could leverage. And a first strategic partnership that we did earlier this year was with Windsor Telecom, and that's been massively exciting for us. So thank you for that, Pete.
I have a firm theory that our customers shouldn't really care about the technology. Our job is to find those brilliant technology partners where there's great underlying capability, but I also think great cultural fit. People that we can trust, people that we can work with as well. And I think that comes through how we work together and how we can make that technology available for our customers.
Yeah, and I think from us being that underlying technology layer that you can leverage, the fact we're from the industry and this voice AI for me is going to be a really competitive space. But the fundamental understanding of the telecoms infrastructure and architecture gives us that key advantage.
Yeah. I think that's important because we are from a telecoms heritage, but we also provide a lot of managed internet, managed connectivity, and sort of IT security services. But what you do notice is where AI has come in. Lots of people are looking at it from lots of different angles, but sometimes the users are getting lost in the middle of that. You see a proliferation of sort of AI agencies out there that maybe don't really understand how businesses rely on this.
Yeah, and I think it's key. The approach that we've taken is that it needs to integrate with what's already in situ. Yeah, people have no doubt invested hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of pounds in the core infrastructure they have to serve their customers. with a voice interface. So we've very much made it our business to integrate with that rather than come along and displacement. For me, and this was the journey that we'd been on, is that AI is at a level as of October 2024 where you can literally just speak to it and it can speak back. And it's called the latest speech-to-speech models, but it allows all of us to have a natural conversation with an AI. The cadence feels right, you can interrupt it, but you're talking in a natural language basis. Anything before that might have been an Amazon Alexa, and it might have been a bit clunky, but the technology is now of an age that it really can assimilate having a natural voice conversation with an AI agent.
Look, you're right. We've been looking at this technology for a little while, and it has hit that. I mean, AI is coming on so fast, not just in voice, but we see it in every domain of our life, just how quickly AI is innovating. But you're right, hitting that tipping point where actually we felt confident that with what you guys have done and how you've sort of used that voice-to-voice technology, we felt comfortable that if someone was phoning up our organisation or someone was phoning up one of our customers' organisations, actually the end customer at the end of that call would be really satisfied and feel like they had a good experience.
Yeah, I think that's key, and I think you gave a really good example of your daughter and the shopping list. Go through that.
Yeah, so human beings like to talk, right? I don't think it's just us. I think human beings, most people like to talk. And I use the example, like if something is, runs out in the larder and the kids want to order more Cocoa Pops and put it on the Amazon shopping list on the Alexa, they don't go up to the Alexa and kind of press the shopping list app button and then type Cocoa Pops in. They just say, hey, Alexa, add Cocoa Pops to the shopping list. And I think a lot of organisations sort of fell into this place of thinking that, people maybe wanted digital channels or wanted to message. And actually, I think people love using voice as an interface. Even if things can be resolved online, or they can go onto a computer and type it in, I actually think they like using voice. It's a very human way of working.
We interrupt this broadcast for a demo of one of our voice AI agents.
Hello. Thank you for calling Classy Co-working in York. How can I help you today?
Hey. I'm looking for some co-working, please.
Can I take your name before we begin? And are you looking for a co-working space for yourself or for a team?
It's myself and two other workers.
So it's just the three of you. Our co-working spaces start from £69 per month per person. We have various options available, including flexible desks and private offices. Would you like me to book you a tour to take a look at our facilities?
I'm not sure yet. So, what was the price again?
Our co-working prices start from £69 per month. I can also offer you a daily rate if you're not looking for a monthly commitment. Would you like me to arrange for a workspace advisor to call you back to discuss further options? And may I take your name, please?
Oh yes, sorry about that. My name's Adam. Yeah, what's the daily rate?
Nice to speak with you, Adam. Our daily rate is £30 per person per day. We also have discounts available for longer-term commitments. If you'd like to know more, I can arrange for a workspace advisor to give you a call back. Can I take a phone number from you, please, for the follow-up?
Yeah, it's 07123 456 789.
I've got that, Adam. Just to confirm, I'll read it back to you. 07123456789, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And actually, is anyone available now for me to speak to?
I can definitely arrange for a workspace advisor to speak with you now, Adam. Please hold for just a moment while I connect you. You'll be speaking with one of our experts who can answer any questions you may have and discuss further details about our co-working spaces.
So as you saw there, I specifically asked for a human being, and it does know that it has the capability to pass me over to a human being. You'll also see that I purposefully chose not to give them my name at the beginning, yet it didn't immediately sort of break character and say like, no, I can't go any further because I need your name, because over here it said always take the caller's name. It waited for a little bit and then brought it up again in natural conversation. So it has that ability. And if you put in the prompt, oh, I don't want it to go any further, I don't want anyone to be able to book without first giving their name, it wouldn't actually allow you to go further in order to do so.
When a customer picks up the phone and dials one of the businesses we work with, they're picking up the phone for a reason. It's usually they want help with something. And I think we've been able to focus in the past on how do we route that call efficiently, how do we make sure we get it to the right person. We talked about
How's that potentially integrated with other systems? What's really exciting about this is we can take that step further, and we can actually help customers, have the agent as that first line of trying to resolve what it is that the customer's picking up the phone to achieve. So it's taking that customer experience just that next step deeper into the organisation.
Yeah, I think there's some very simple use cases. I know when I've been out speaking to, I guess, my social circle of friends, some of that have got businesses, explaining what the technology does and how it can manifest itself. I say, look, the first base is it's going to do a better job than your answer machine. Yeah, and if we start there and move upwards, there's loads of basic use cases where, I guess for me, the small business, medium business can get involved to help deliver that efficiency, starting from maybe an out-of-hours agent, maybe an AI receptionist. Just as businesses become more comfortable, this idea of having an AI agent that can be part of their team, right? So I guess there's some more use cases that you probably explored with your customers.
Look, I get really excited talking about the use cases because this is the real way that it helps businesses. So talking to one of our hospitality customers, you're in a busy bar, restaurant, there's 3 people deep at the bar waiting to be served, 2 people have just walked in waiting to be sat at a table, and the phone rings. So, what do? Do you keep the people at the bar waiting? Do you not sleep with people who've just walked in? Or do you pick up the phone? Or do you let the phone ring and ring and ring and have someone frustrated at the end of it? Having that AI agent being, if you like, the first line picking up that call, being able to say, are they asking for directions? Do they want to book a table? Do they want to know what's on the menu? Do they want allergy information? All of that being able to be handled automatically by the sort of AI agent picking up that call. And sure, it can have the integration with Res Diary or OpenTable or Design My Night. But maybe, it's a group of 8 people, they can book online for next Thursday. Maybe it's a party of 12, then it can be passed to one of the humans. So that's a great example of how it's a better experience for the person picking up the phone and actually just takes a little bit of pressure off of the team that are working in there. So I think that's one great use case.
Some of the questions we get asked when customers are deploying an AI agent is, are we going to tell our customers it's an AI agent? And I'm fully supportive of that position right now, because I think if a human speaks to this AI agent, if that's known, right, but the human then can get to the information that they want and deliver that efficiency rather than potentially an answer machine or not even getting through at all, that's a better experience, right? And we're at the start of this technology where the voice capability of the agent is only going to get better. If we can get those customers the information they want as quickly as they want, we end up with a happier customer.
You mentioned replacement for answering machine, and I think that's a great use case that we see, and it definitely does a better job than an answer machine. But I don't think that necessarily does it justice. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people adopt it as a replacement for sort of Money Penny or those type of call answering services. It can have your FAQ built in, so if an engineer is being called out of hours or a customer has a problem out of hours, not only can it actually take a message, but it can potentially have access to all the knowledge of your organisation to act as a first resolver and actually summarise that in a brilliant way. So if a human does have to be called out to support, summarise that so they've got access to that whole conversation. So I think that replacement for those type of services, which businesses spend a lot of money on, and let's be honest, the human labour that sits behind that is really expensive. So I think that's a great use case that you touched on there.
I think that's an important point for everyone to understand. We're talking about voice AI agents. So if we call a business, how does that agent understand, what's going on in that business? It could be the hospitality, and it could be the pub opening hours, it could be what's on the restaurant, any special offers. But to enable an agent, it's really easy. We don't need lots of complex data. We need some simple FAQs, as much information as the business wants to share. But ultimately, once that's ingested into the agent's knowledge base, that agent can articulate. And it could be 1 document, it could be 25 documents. And what we've really found is that certainly in the small business tier, the owners of the businesses are taking great pride in crafting their agents with the information that they can then communicate. And once the agent has it, it's there 24/7. It could actually even be in 26 languages across 24/7. So I think it's a playful journey that we've seen the end user customers go on. But emphasize this, we don't need lots of complex data.
But it's also important to say not only don't we need lots of complex data, the agent is living and breathing the information that it's given. So it isn't just going out to the public internet and making it up. You know, it is being educated on that data which is specific to that organisation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then running through these use cases, we come to a point that if the agent doesn't have all the information or the end user business wants that call transferred, of course, with it being telecoms, we just transfer that call from the agent to the human, right? So this could be, if it's not out of hours, but it's in hours, like an AI receptionist, then we can ultimately have the agent triage a specific dial plan or use case and then transfer that call with a warm intro, which brings, I guess, a multiple element of use cases we can give to that small business to drive that efficiency.
I think we touched on another example, which was, you know, I guess linked to two of these things. It can also feed real time through an integration to CRM. So maybe a slightly more complex customer or a slightly larger customer that actually wants to give information that's contextual to the individual person phoning up.
Yeah, I think that's key in terms of, I guess, why we've created the partnership is that we can go from those simple use cases to, I guess, more complex. And how we've designed the application means we can go into, you know, understanding the specific tech, integrate with it, and then deliver a range of integrations on the back of that to really drive the efficiency in the bigger business.
So that's things like, I guess, into specific booking applications, that's things like CRM integrations, that's calendar integrations, email integrations, those type of things?
Yeah, look, there's probably 4 or 5 key parts to building a good AI solution. Now, the first is the quality for me of the speech-to-speech, right? And ultimately, we're giving you the ability to pick and change, and as technology evolves, we can plug that in. But really, then it starts to be with the ease of building that knowledge base we just spoke about. But then to drive real efficiency, it's this level of integration we can do to the incumbent tech stack or incumbent software systems, meaning the agent can interact not only with a warm transfer to a human, but it could be a CRM database to relay information to the end user caller about when their next appointment is.
So I could be starting with something as simple as uploading a document with some opening times, some directions, some FAQs, really through to as complex as integrating into, you know, a full sort of system stack in the organisation.
Yeah, and I guess there's some of those systems that exist already. You're ringing up to pay a parking fine. But doing that with a natural voice agent can probably accelerate that and make it an easier interaction, and therefore you're not trying to put a human in the chain if you don't want to, and that delivers you the maximum efficiency that you can administer your customer query as fast as possible, right, upping that customer satisfaction.
So we've spoken a lot about the feature set sort of aligned to telecoms and how we can go sort of beyond the traditional tech stack and actually making people's jobs easier and actually helping resolve things instantly in an automated way for customers. We talked a lot about what it can do, but, you know, in terms of stopping it doing what we don't want it to do, I think you've got this concept that you call guardrails, which is, in layman's terms, this is what I want the AI to say, this is what I don't want it to say.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's absolutely key, because when your customers are ringing into your businesses, you don't want it, what they call technology term, hallucinating. Saying that actually, no, we're open 24/7 when you know we close at 6:30. So specifically into the platform, we've built these guardrails that could be administered across a whole solution, but indeed the customer then can add their own, right? I don't speak about these competitors, or that could be an example. Also, what goes hand in glove with that is, I guess, the data security and infrastructure around the platform. So again, another reason why I guess our partnership is key is that we are a UK business and all our infrastructure is in the UK. Administered by, I guess, you know, the AI regulations in this country.
And I think that's really important across all of the areas we help customers with, whether that's sort of the AI adoption planning. That's one of the things we talk a lot about. How do you get your data ready? How do you get the data security ready? And actually, how do you people talked about shadow IT a little while ago, people bringing IT into organisations they shouldn't. Shadow AI is also a problem, and I think some small businesses or businesses of all sizes don't necessarily appreciate some of the sort of freemium AI services maybe come with unintended risks.
Yeah, and I think this lends itself to what we said before about if you're going to adopt voice AI technology to help that efficiency within your business, you can start at a low risk point, and it doesn't take loads of complex data. But once you've got your confidence, you can go on the journey and ask it to do more. And we'd see that being an iterative process. We put a customer live the other day and 35% of the calls were being handed off to the human.
Yeah.
We were then looking at the 35% to say which was the good in the 35% that wanted to go to a human because they wanted extra revenue or extra booking, and what could the agent have done better where maybe its knowledge base wasn't as good as it could have been. So it's a very iterative process across, starting small and gaining momentum and confidence.
So you're almost thinking of the agent like any other new member of staff. You might train them on some fairly straightforward tasks. As they get more confident with that, as the organisation gets more confident that that's working, you can then train the agent perhaps on more complex activities and sort of layer in, further services. So you don't necessarily have to start with everything, but you can kind of take it step by step and think, what are the 3 straightforward use cases that I could just take away from the human team today, and then I guess add to that over time?
Yeah, look, as businesses look to adopt AI, we feel that voice AI is a really easy starting point.
Yeah.
Once they start to understand the process that sits behind it, they can go on that journey themselves of how they can drive. And like I say, we can build a voice agent that can sit on a phone line.
Yeah.
That same voice agent can sit on a website.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the same agent could sit behind a support email inbox. Whereby it's going to respond in text, but it's accessing the same knowledge base.
So that's an interesting distinction actually to draw, that you've got the agent which is performing the task, if you like, and then you've got how the people interact with that. So voice over the top of that really is a way of interacting with the agent, which is very natural. People love talking. The conversation we're having today. But actually the agent that sits behind that, you could still have powering other forms of communication. So communication coming in through email, through
WhatsApp,
through
SMS,
WhatsApp, through WhatsApp, or through a online chat bot, or any of those kind of things. It could be the same agent performing the task.
If we did a little bit of research, we would understand in the SMB sector, at the moment still 65% of interaction is still done by voice.
Yeah.
Well, of course, if the business is closed between 9 and 5 in the main, there's loads of hours where people would prefer to use voice. That's what we're saying at the start of the show. That people prefer voice. But ultimately, the agent and its brain can sit against the other, let's say 35%, which could be email, it could be SMS, it could be WhatsApp. And so we've coined this phrase that ultimately what we're doing for any SMB business now is putting AI at the intersection of their business and customers to deliver that efficiency.
I think it comes back to what we talk a lot about is that customer and colleague experience. How can you use AI to make life easier for your customers or easier for your colleagues in the business?
And look, and that's great. And I talk a lot about the businesses themselves getting the confidence. And actually starting to trust the agents, and the agents can be named, as you want, but it becomes playful, and when people start to see the results, it's like a light bulb moment.
One of the sort of horrendous things that get talked about sometimes is how, organisations sometimes, maybe going back a while, contact centres had a reputation of trying to avoid contact. You'd hear sometimes people saying, well, how can we stop people contacting the organisation? I think I never really understood that, because anytime someone's contacting you, it's a chance to build a relationship with that customer. So this is almost a sort of a way of bridging that desire to have people contact you, but also needing to deal with that efficiently and cost effectively.
And I think, look, if you looked at the history of communication, then there's millions of dollars being spent on email and messaging, because the cost of the human to complement between the training, everything that would sit behind it, businesses have run to try and drive that efficiency. Voice AI starts to reverse that trend because people would prefer to speak wherever possible. And if that can be 24/7, and it's cost effective, then it's a great solution.
Human people are an expensive resource, and they're a precious resource that should be used very wisely. Actually, this is one of the things that really excites me, because it's technology that genuinely has an opportunity to both save organisations money by relying on less expensive human resource, but at the same time not compromise the experience that they deliver to their customers.
I think that's also key, isn't it? But also, if you take that human capital within the business, it can be deployed for its maximum efficiency, right? So you're not taking people off tasks that they should be doing to answer a phone, right? You can let the AI agent answer the phone, so the people who are doing the task can do it, all through the day and to max efficiency.
I think just going back to another use case, because I love these like examples. We were talking to one customer who tyre fitting garage, so it's a big tyre fitting organisation. I said there's nothing more frustrating. You get the car on the ramp, you just start to take the gas thing out to undo the bolts, and you're just there. You got your hands all dirty, and the phone rings. So you have to stop what you're doing. You then have to go and pick up the phone, and they want to inquire. Do you have this size tyre in stock? Or what size tyre do I need for my car? Again, they're things that they could have inquired on the website, but they want to phone up. They want to ask that question. They maybe need to be guided through, asked a few questions. So, well, what's your registration? Well, you can have this tyre, or you can have that tyre. They're saying that stop-start of when you're halfway through a job actually is so frustrating. I thought that was a really good example of what you were talking about, where they can just crack on and do the bit that they need to do and that they're good at and fit the tyres without having to keep getting distracted picking up the phone. But you need those bookings to come in as well, right? So that's an important part of running the business, is helping and advising the people on what they need.
And look, it's pertinent, isn't it? We had another use case that was very similar, totally different industry, in escape rooms, right? And they were getting multiple calls asking if they had a blue light discount card.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, if that was 50% of their call volume, if the agent could answer that, then brilliant, right? It's not dissuading from people from doing the tasks within the business.
Yeah.
And this is what I'd say for the SMB business, and I guess we've seen it with our team and your team. We have that experience of what's going on in the business to find the low-hanging fruit that enables us where we can put that agent and direct them first to start people on that journey.
Yeah. And that's one of the conversations that I know our team love having with customers when we're talking about this, which is that, right, if you get a group of people together and say, right, what are the 3 things you would love to not have to do? What are the 3 things that you would love to be able to just automate and put into this agent, and just picking those off as the sort of early wins in the deployment?
Yeah, so look, I guess you've got your own incentives to how customers start to be able to get going across the Windsor customer base. You want to talk us through a couple of those?
Yeah, there's lots of different starting points that when we talk to organisations, we've deployed a lot of agents now. And we're really starting to see the momentum building behind that. But you pick out some themes that you see, So we start with that conversation. What are the things that you could automate? So concierge type services. So frequently asked questions is a really good thing. Actually, when people pick up the phone, these are the top 5, 6 things which customers are usually asking us for. It might be, whether that's directions, whether that's information about the business, whether that's some kind of technical questions. But so just picking out, when they pick up the phone, what are the half a dozen things they're most often asking? Bookings is another really good one. There's lots of different examples across lots of different industries, but use case around availability in bookings. So, can I book a table for next Thursday? Can I book my car in to be serviced? Can I book a track day for this day? A million different organisations, but they often have that sort of booking FAQ element about them. Very often as well, we're talking to customers around out of hours. So, what can they do out of hours? Can they triage that contact? So, maybe something is urgent, maybe something can wait to the next day. So, I think there's 3 really, regular starting points there, but it usually comes back to that conversation. What are those common touch points that when someone picks up the phone, what are they most likely to say?
Yeah, I think the bit for me, and hopefully what we've enabled you with, now that everyone's seen the demo of what speech-to-speech can give, is it's fairly easy for us to set up an agent to get people going, and therefore it's relatively inexpensive to then start and investigate your own agent. I guess there's a bit more setup costs come in when we have to start to look internally at the workflows and doing the level of integration to the back-end systems. But for me, to get your first agent up and running on some form of AI receptionist or out of hours is relatively inexpensive and relatively easy.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to articulate to, I guess, customers, that it's not going to be thousands of pounds, but they can just get up and start to have that first voice agent. And go on the journey.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right, and that's what we say to all of our customers. You know, if you've got an idea around how an AI voice agent might be able to help in your organisation, let's start with that. You know, straightforward, bounded sort of idea. Let's build it, deploy it, low cost, low risk, iterate it, play around with it, get feedback from customers, get feedback from the colleagues in the organisations, and build it forwards. Hopefully the conversation with Alex and I has helped give a great insight into, you know, not just what AI agents are, but hopefully get to the thought processes running about how you could maybe adopt them in your organisations. And I know we would both love to answer any questions that people have.
Hi there. So hopefully that was helpful and has got everybody thinking about what a difference AI voice could make to the customers and colleagues in their business. I think we've had half a dozen or so questions come in so far during the course of that. I'm gonna pick off one first here, which for a crossover a little bit with what we were talking about, which is, you know, how, as they're calling themselves a small business in this case, how can a small business sort of think about the starting point for adopting AI? And I think, you know, we covered one of these points when Alex and I were talking, but I think it's really about picking 2 or 3 things that your team would really appreciate you just taking off their plate. What I think we try and avoid doing is trying to solve everything and turning it into a massive project. We would far rather work with a customer incrementally and say, here's the first 2 or 3 things, you know, let's get that to market, let's get that deployed, let's make that really cost effective, let's get everyone really comfortable with the technology, and then let's build on that and iterate that over time. I believe we're also joined by Rob, who is part of the founding team at Simply AI. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Rob.
Hi, Pete. Yeah, I think I definitely just echo what you mentioned, where our kickoff meetings tend to be sort of lofty aspirations of like, how can we automate everything in the business and how can we sort of solve everything at once? And we often, need to sort of scale that down and be like, okay, well, where in your business do you have a lot of like manual effort or a lot of time being spent sort of handling these calls? And let's start doing those. And like, what's the simplest use case? And that often helps to sort of gain confidence, build a bit of traction and momentum. And then, as you've mentioned, where you have the sort of the more interesting and the more complicated use cases, that's when you can like start to grow into those. And yeah, we've got a lot of use cases where we've sort of built on these and we've developed as we've gone. So no, I definitely agree with what you said there.
I think that question links to one of the other questions that's coming, which is about integration. So I gave examples of what we were doing in hospitality with people like OpenTable, where there's sort of an integration to their website today. This question is really saying, you know, what integrations can you have and what's the cost of those integrations?
Yeah, I think that is a tricky question. So yeah, we've almost got like a sliding scale at this point. So we started off, we've built out a number of integrations for some of the big platforms. So things like SendGrid to send emails. We've got Outlook calendar integrations, Google Calendar integrations, like all of the key ones like that. And one of the things that was quickly brought up by some of the customers and the partners is we want to get up and running as quickly as possible. We don't really want to wait until you sort of had the time to develop this. So we've now built the sort of bring your own API feature where you can pretty much integrate with anything that has an API endpoint and you can sort of customize that and build that, which is great for, again, sort of the simpler use cases where you're just sort of pushing information or fetching information. And then past that, we're into a bit of a sliding scale of how simple the integration is for the platform and how deep do we want that integration to go. So we've got a sort of dental platform at the moment that is quite a sort of deep integration, and we've got lots of functionality that we're going to be building out there, which is taking a bit more of development time and slightly more expensive, whereas we've got sort of cheaper ones where we just need to sort of like push messages into a CRM platform or something like that, which is a lot more straightforward in those instances.
That makes perfect sense. So is effectively, you know, a hybrid of out the box integrations and more bespoke projects. And, you know, I think that bring your own API point is really interesting for organisations that have line of business applications. So you mentioned dental, vets, recruitment, hospitality, legal. We see that a lot with sort of, I guess, coming from a telephony heritage, doing whether it's basic screen pop in call recordings and client information and note taking, or putting AI notes into that, right through to really deep integration. So I think anybody who's thought about integrating a phone system is probably a similar analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And the bring your own API thing, I would just add on that, customers at the larger scale that perhaps have in-house IT and development teams, see that's work they can do. And of course, it's what we do with a lot of customers as well in terms of helping them on board and supporting them. So slightly different question, which I'll probably pick up here. We talked about low cost and low risk. The question is, what does low cost actually mean? And without having a conversation with you, which we will follow up with after this call, what we would say generally is, starting from, from an onboarding perspective, from a few hundred to a few £1,000s, depending on the complexity. And then depending on the sort of usage around agents, starting from 50, £100 a month, scaling up to, many thousands if you're a large contact center with a huge call volume. But this is absolutely accessible for businesses of all sizes. So that's from a cost perspective. I think being accessible is also about how easy it is to onboard and risk. I don't know if you want to kind of touch on that side of it, Rob.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it follows a similar narrative to the previous question, where it's like start small and grow. And I think when you start to use the platform and you see the use cases that are coming through, the sort of valuation and the cost of the platform, I think you can see in a different light, because when you equate it to time saved by the business, it becomes quite an easy decision to make, because there's hours of phone time that you're sort of clawing back from the humans, as it were. And yeah, definitely agree that we've sort of built the platform in a way that is as sort of simple and easy to use as possible. We don't want sort of developers and coders to have to sort of engineer these agents. So a lot of it is clicking, selecting, pulling it all together, and then building a prompt that sort of incorporates those toolings and things. So yeah, definitely sort of try to remove as much of the barriers to getting started as possible.
That links nicely actually to one of the other questions, which is, how much content do we have to feed this AI agent to learn it, and so that it is kind of trained up, I think was the way they phrased it. I guess my starting point on that is probably, if you've got a website, then there's base information there, because actually a lot of organizations have core information on a website. If you've got any training material that you give colleagues when they join the organization, maybe in a SharePoint site, that's great to point it at. If you've got an FAQ, even better. But really it can be as simple as a website. And I don't know if you want to touch on the way the AI agent sort of mixes, I guess, what's part of its, I guess what you guys would call the large language model, what's part of its inherent knowledge versus what it's specifically fed and trained on, which is about that company specifically.
Yeah, definitely. And it's probably an interesting split to understand that we have the sort of knowledge base that we refer to, which in the platform is you can just upload documents, or as you mentioned, Pete, it can be, we can link it to your SharePoint, so we can ingest the documents from the SharePoint to make it sort of even easier if you've got those like collaborative portals and things like your Teams and stuff. So we can pull that information in where you could have sort of PDFs, Word documents, PowerPoints, Excels, like any sort of documents that you want, and we can pull that in as like reference material. And then obviously we have the prompt that you build out in the actual platform, where this is more sort of like instructing the agent what you need it to do and how to do. And that's where you can tell it, if people are asking like questions about the business, refer to your knowledge base, and you can sort of fetch the information there. And what's good is it's sort of built in a way that you can, if you wanted to, ingest like loads and loads of documents. You can sort of, when we do see people sort of go over the top with the amount of information that they need, but the agent's like intelligent enough to just sort of pick up the information that it needs from the knowledge base, rather than like trying to comb through all of the documents as you would imagine a human would. So that's really interesting. I think also the way that you go around sort of building the agents is an interesting one, because again, starting from small, the actual use case of the agent can be quite small. So you don't always need like loads and loads of data and all of this information to like provide to the agent. We can actually just start getting to like up and running with a very like simple one pager of this is the business, this is the information that you need, and like away you go for some of the simple use cases.
Yeah, but that knowledge base bit is interesting, like you say, because it can be from a single document to, you know, working with one of our customers. They run a big online store, so they stock around about 1,000 products. And for each one of those products, there's a PDF from the manufacturer which has the specs for those products, but nobody can trawl through 1,000 PDFs. But actually, an AI agent can. You know, if they're indexed into a SharePoint site, the AI agent knows which product you're talking about, links the SKU to that PDF, and actually becomes a really accessible way. And they've had actually their staff and the internal team are using it as well as customers.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's sort of linking back to the different modes and types of agents that you have. Like, you could have a facing agent that they want customers to start engaging with, but then you could be like, oh, we'll switch text mode on, and then we can basically use it as like a Google or like a search engine to wade through all documents rather than having to sort of go through them yourself.
Fantastic. There's a very specific question here, which is, do we have to have our phone system with Windsor today to be able to take advantage of it? The answer to that is very simple. No, this sits over the top of your existing telephony infrastructure. There are things we can do with some of the systems that we provide and some existing systems to more deeply integrate it, but everything we've talked about today can sit over the top of your existing telephony infrastructure. So it doesn't have to be a big lift and shift project. This is about enhancing what you've already got and taking some of the weight off the team. So that's a very straightforward question to answer. So I think that's picked up all of the questions. So big thank you, Rob, for joining us this morning. Big thank you to Alex for sitting down with me and having this conversation together. And a big thank you for you all joining us online today.